This is Black Cat Red River, and in this video we're going to show you how to get started gardening and base building in Subnautica within your first hour of gameplay, so that you can solve your hunger and dehydration and your storage concerns as soon as possible. Now there's really only 3 tools that you need to accomplish this. The scanner, which you need for learning new crafting blueprints. The survival knife, which you need to, well, even to make the fabrication tool because of the coral that's required, but also for collecting seeds and plant samples for gardening. And the fabrication tool, which you need to build your base in the first place and lay down your first gardening plots, as well as be able to build the proper storage lockers that are going to solve your storage needs. So this image shows you the resources you need to make these 3 items, and that's all you really must have to get started. The most challenging ingredients on this list for new players will likely be the silver and gold, because they tend to be found in sandstone deep inside the caves beneath the starting area. But once you know where and what to look for, it becomes a little bit easier. Now, as I will attempt to show you in a largely unedited 1-hour straight gameplay video, in the process of collecting the gold and silver that you need for your fabrication tool, you're very likely going to be able to knock off a few additional recipes along the way without having to go out of your way to acquire those extra ingredients. For example, here on the screen, there's 3 additional items that are useful and very easy to tack on while you're trying to get your silver and gold anyway. Right? The fins, you already need to grab a little bit of rubber for your knife, so you can grab a little bit more creepvine seed cluster and knock off your fins. Titanium is the easiest resource to find in the game, so very easy to get your basic oxygen tank and increase the amount of time that you can stay underwater. And the flashlight, of course, is useful for exploring those underwater caves, looking for silver and gold and quartz and things in the first place. So yeah, grabbing a little bit of quartz and some copper and acid mushrooms to get the flashlight out of the way, that will be handy and not too much extra effort. And finally, it's always good to keep in mind some of your potential future resource needs. So here's 3 more items that you may wish to keep in mind while you're gathering resources for your fabrication tool. They're not necessary to get yourself started with gardening and building your base, but they will be useful down the road. The repair tool, not necessary to get started, but it will be useful later. The Sea Glide, definitely useful because it speeds up your swimming speed greatly, but again, not absolutely crucial. And your Grav Trap, which will help you with things like catching fish, and that can be very useful too. If you're starving, it can be definitely useful. But if you can knock off those 3 necessary tools as quickly as possible, you won't need any of these. But it's good to keep in mind the kinds of resources that you will need for them. This is the repair tool is the only real tool early on that you need sulfur for. So don't go crazy gathering sulfur until you have plenty of storage, And same with the creepvine seed clusters. You need 1 lubricant for your Sea Glide. So, you can grab an extra seed cluster and convert it to a lubricant. Further down the road, you'll want more lubricant for your mobile vehicle bay and for your sea moth, but you don't need those right away. when space is limited, and that sort of thing. Now, the Sea Glide and the Grav Trap are a little more complicated because you need blueprints in order to be able to make them in the first place. So if you have your scanner and you happened to come across one of the fragments necessary for these things, then obviously you can grab them. But you do not need them for what I'm about to show you in terms of getting started with your gardening. So without further ado, let's get to it.
You have suffered minor head trauma. This is considered an optimal outcome. This PDA has now rebooted in emergency mode with one directive: to keep you alive on an alien world. Please refer to the databank for detailed survival advice. Good luck.
All right, you've just put out your fire. It's a good idea to check the storage bench here. I usually pick up, one of the flares and some water just to get myself started. A flare can be useful in the tunnels, in the caverns, giving you a little bit of light before you have had time to build yourself a flashlight. And always grab your med kit from the medical kit fabricator there. It will periodically renew itself, so keep checking it and keep pulling out first aid kits because you're going to need them. Yeah, so first things first, survey your surroundings and we can start gathering some resources and build some tools.
Zero human life signs detected.
And there we have a tunnel right below our life pod. Good place to go look for limestone, get some copper, and go in and start looking for silver and gold and quartz and everything. Oh, and there is one of them exploding fish. So when you hear that sound, run away. I think those are called crash fish, and they will chase you and explode right next to you. But once they have exploded, you can go right back into the same tunnel and keep searching, because that's a good... Oh, yeah, okay, and there's two of them in here. But once they have been taken out, you can go get their sulfur and take a quick peek for hopefully silver or gold. Just make sure you go up for air as regularly as possible. You will die if you reach zero air. You won't start to die, you will actually just die. So be cautious about your oxygen levels. Now here you have these seaweed forests, or kelp forests, or creep vine is what it's called. And we know that we have to collect a little bit of creep vine for rubber, as well as later on for lubricant. So you go grab these bright yellow seed clusters. They take up a lot of space though. You can usually only pick up a few. but that's a necessary ingredient for our survival knife and for our fins. While we're out here, we could take a look for other things. Oh, there's some salt. Useful for a few things related to cooking and water production. So grabbing some salt when you see it is not a bad idea. And now we have enough resources to zip back into the escape pod and do a couple things. Converting metal salvage into titanium, converting your creepvine clusters into rubber as well as lubricant. Now you don't need a lot of lubricant early on, but it takes up less space than the creepvine seed cluster anyway, so you might as well just do that. Free up some storage space. So now we have a bit of resources for our standard oxygen tank and our fins or flippers. Might as well get those out of the way. And what about our tools? We picked up some sulfur, so we can make our repair tool. We can also make our survival knife, which is going to be important.
Weapons were removed from standard survival blueprints following the massacre on Abraxas Prime. The knife remains the only exception.
Now it's always a good idea to open up your storage and put away the things that are important that you don't want to lose. So always put away, your copper and your silver and your gold if you have space for it, because if you do die, you will likely lose a bunch of your resources and have to go and gather them all over again. Now we know we need acid mushrooms for batteries, 2 per battery, and we need at least 2 batteries for the scanner and the fabrication tool. A third for the flashlight if we're going to end up making that. So you want to get at least 6 acid mushrooms, maybe 10, so that you don't have to come gathering it every time. And these table coral samples, you only need a couple of those for your fabrication tool. Don't go crazy and take up a ton of space with coral unless you know exactly what you need it for. So here I'll put away a couple of my acid mushrooms and grab the copper so that I can make a couple batteries right away and then see what that gets us.
New blueprint acquired.
Okay, so I converted a couple quartz into glass previously, so that with the battery will get us our flashlight, which will be useful for exploring those caves and looking for our gold and silver.
detecting sulfur deposits in the local cave systems. Sulfur is an essential component of the repair tool.
Now we've already made the flashlights, so we don't need more glass, but gathering a few quartz for later, at least 3, for when you are ready to build your base. You'll want at least 3 right away for your hatch and for a solar panel. So grabbing up to 3 extra quartz, probably a good idea. Just toss them into your storage chest.
The scanner can be used to synthesize blueprints from salvage technology and to record alien biological data.
Now normally I would go gathering some fish and avoid using up these nutrient blocks, which are actually quite good. But I'm going to just eat this one here and drink some water and top ourselves up a bit for the purposes of trying to speed up the video a little bit. Now unfortunately it's a little dark now that it's nighttime, but we do have our flashlight and we can go gathering copper and other things. Now, a nice thing about these brain coral is you can go get oxygen from them by hovering above them and waiting for your oxygen to top up, which is pretty cool. Very handy in these caves if you're down there a little while. Gives you a better chance to explore and look for the sandstone that might contain silver and gold. And there's the sound of a crash fish. Oh, I turned my flashlight off by mistake. That was a bit of an error there. I almost got killed. So, oh, there, that is sandstone. So it's very important to grab that. Got 1 silver. Okay, let's get the heck out of here before we get killed. If we can find our way back out. Sometimes it gets a little confusing in these deep caves, but if another crash fish exploded near me, I would be dead with my health so low like that. Thankfully, the med kit has produced another first aid kit for me, so I can heal myself up a little bit. Still not at full, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to wait for another med kit to be produced. But in the meantime, maybe there's something we can craft. Now we picked up 1 gold and 1 silver and 1 lead. You have equal chances, or pretty much, of finding gold, silver, or lead in sandstone. Now space is getting to be a premium here, so I could free up a little bit of space by making another battery. and freeing up a couple slots that I don't have. We know that I need to make at least one more battery for the fabrication tool anyway, but we also need some more copper and some more silver in order to do that. Now we've already encountered one crash fish down here. There's probably going to be more. And yes, there is another one there. Okay. There's actually two of them. Jeez, okay. That was scary. But that probably means that's it for them. I might have a little bit of freedom to explore for silver now. And there, okay, two more sandstones. So there, that's what we're looking for right there. Silver and a bit more lead.
30 seconds. Seconds.
And now it looks like we just have enough for the wiring kit, the computer chip, and the battery that we do need for our fabrication tool.
Blueprint acquired. The Builder tool is designed to construct habitats capable of withstanding...
And there we are. We have the 3 minimum tools needed to go start building our base and start gardening. The knife, the scanner, and the fabrication tool. And we picked up a couple extra items just as bonuses along the way. The flashlight, the repair tool, the fins, the oxygen tank. But basically, we're ready to go now and complete this part of the mission. You don't actually need to repair anything in your life pod at the moment. You can do that if you wish, but you don't need to.
Diagnostic and outputting results to databank.
This is Aurora. Distress signal received. Rescue operation will be dispatched to your location in 9 hours. Continue to monitor for emergency transmissions from other life pods.
Now for the hard part, which is finding the floating island without the benefit of a compass. A compass requires you to go grab the compass recipe, and it also takes 2 silver. So my suggestion is use your first 2 silver for the fabrication tool and set out in a roughly south or southwesterly direction and hope that you can find the floating island. It's a bit of a risk without your compass and without knowing sort of exactly the direction. I kind of usually just try to wing it. Without a sea glide or a sea moth, it takes longer as well to find it. But you can periodically look back towards your life pod and see the distance that you've traveled in relation to your life pod. And a good sort of general thing to keep in mind is that the floating island is about somewhere in the 1,300 to 1,400 meter distance range. So you have a rough sense of the range that you need to go, but the precise direction, that is sort of south and or southwest of your starting area. But your starting area is a little bit randomized. So sometimes you can get lost looking for it. But let's see what happens. Hopefully we'll be able to find it without starving to death or dying of thirst.
The number of small cave networks.
It can be a bit scary swimming out towards the middle of nowhere with already being a bit thirsty and a bit hungry. But if you stay close to the surface, you shouldn't have any problems with predators attacking you. And if we have some luck finding this island, we'll be able to address our food and water needs fairly easily once we get there. Okay, so here we're almost 1,100 meters away from our life pod, our starting life pod. So we're almost at the distance that we need to be looking out for the island. So 1,300 meters is around the distance that the island should be, give or take. So if you haven't spotted it, I usually attempt to go along the sort of lateral position, like if I think I've gone too far east or too far west, sort of try to go sideways, keeping that rough distance of 13 to 1,400 meters. And hopefully come across it. Now the island is sort of shrouded in fog, so it can be, you can't see it from very far away. So you have to kind of come across it for it to suddenly appear. But I think, yeah, I'm starting to think maybe I've gone too far to the west. Let's just explore a little bit further that way, and then go back the other direction and try over there. Yeah, I think I've gone too far west, so I probably should turn around and go back the other way, closer towards the side, 1,300 meters away, but closer towards the Aurora, the giant shipwreck over there. All right, I think I've overshot here, so I'm going to try the other direction, running along the 1,300 to 1,400 range, but closer towards the Aurora, and hopefully find this island before I starve to death. Okay, so my video capture stops every half hour on the PS4, so a little bit of a jerkiness there. But okay, now it's getting to be dark, unfortunately. The sun is going down, and we still haven't found the island, but hopefully, hopefully we'll come across it soon.
Damage to plant life on the seafloor suggests this may be the migration path of a huge, bottom-dwelling life form.
And there it is, finally. There is the floating island that we've been looking for, thankfully, because I was almost out of, almost dying of thirst. So this is a lot. Okay, it is 1,300 meters away from my life pod, but it's a lot closer to the sort of back end of the aurora.
Picking up multiple energy signatures on the island's surface.
So that took probably an extra 10 minutes of time to locate than I was hoping it would, but and that might have shaved off a little bit of time from our video. But here we are, finally on the island, and we just need to well, hopefully we're gonna run into a lot of these little land crabs here, and they're a bit annoying. But you can swing at them with your knife and kill them with your knife, or just try to move quickly past them as quickly as you can, one way or the other. But now that we're here, there's a number of man-made structures on the island where we can go to scan the gardening and the other building items that we're going to need the blueprints for. And we got to make sure to collect the samples of the agricultural products that we're going to want to grow on our own farm. But in the meantime, I've got to solve my own hunger and thirst issues. So this bulbo tree here is a good one for satisfying both food and hunger, both food and water needs. They do take up a lot of space, 4 slots in for a single one. But you can top up and eat as much as you need, and then you'll want to take an extra one, possibly for planting back home. So this is the main settlement in the valley between the two mountainous sort of spots. And you can get your exterior grow bed here, as well as a number of other key items. You can scan plants and grab some of the seeds, but the main thing is getting the exterior grow bed as well as this big multi-purpose room here, which is going to form the basis for most of your base building. So the multi-purpose room is a key one, but there's a lot of other little items to pick up. The desk here, the wall planter, that sort of thing.
New blueprint acquired. Integrating new PDA data. New blueprint acquired.
The bulkhead doors here are a key building component because they improve the hull integrity of your base, so they're really important.
New blueprint acquired. New blueprint acquired. Integrating new PDA data. Integrating new PDA data.
Now, in addition to that base in the valley, there are two observatories on the tops of these two mountains that you're going to want to also make your way up to. It can be a little tricky getting up there, but you can, for the most part, follow these paths. There's these clearly trod paths. If you follow them, you should be able to make your way up to these observatories. And there's further crafting blueprints that you can find in each of them that are unique to each of the observatories. So don't forget to do that as well.
Preparing the day's water ration ahead of time will help ensure against dehydration.
So this is the observatory. That's an important room that you can build as well. So you can grab the observatory. And there's also the indoor grow bed, which you actually need to plant crops underwater inside your base. The other grow bed, the exterior grow bed that we picked up in the valley, you can use underwater for underwater plants outside of your base. So they're both used for different purposes, and they're both important for your agriculture plans. Now you can scan and collect seeds from some of these other plants. Some of them are mostly for just for decorative purposes. They don't necessarily have a function in terms of like being edible or not, or having other crafting properties. But some of them look pretty cool, and you can plant them as decorations in your base. So now we want to head back down into the valley and then back up to the observatory on the other side of the valley, on the other mountaintop, and see what blueprints are available up there. And here we have these little small plant pots you can use for single plants, mostly as decoration, but you can also plant edible foods in them, as these are.
New blueprint acquired. Integrating new PDA data.
And now we basically have all of the blueprints that we came here for to get ourselves started base building and farming. All that's left is to make sure we have all of the seeds we're going to want for starting our initial crops. But other than that, it's just a question or a matter of deciding where you want to build your initial starter base. I usually recommend going back to your starting life pod and building very nearby to that and using the life pod as your directional guide. But that's just my preference. You may decide you'd prefer to build your base right here on the surface of the floating island. That's sort of up to you, although there isn't really a lot of titanium and things like that available. You'd have to go underwater to find all that stuff. So in some ways it's just easier to go back to the starting shallows and build something there, just to get yourself familiar with the process. So here you might as well top up your eating and drinking from the bulbo tree. And before you set back out into the water, make sure you're topped up and that you have the ingredients that you're going to want. Now I'm going to want to plant 4 bulbo trees. You don't need to take 4 of the seeds or samples with you. You can do it with 1, but if you have the space, it's nice to take all 4 and just get them all planted immediately in your first garden plot. There are, of course, other things to explore on this island. There are some caves. There's some alien architecture. There's other secrets, but for this purposes of this video, we're just grabbing what we need to get started with our farming and heading straight back. Now, the return trip, obviously much easier because you have your life pod as your beacon guiding you home. Basically 1,300 meters, but no worries about direction. And you also have the Aurora there as your general guide. Now, obviously, swimming to the island and back from the island would be a lot faster with a sea glide or a sea moth. You can spend a little more time in the shallows gathering up the things for those items, but you don't need to, as you could see here. It can be done with the most minimal of tools, but yeah, it is definitely a little bit slower making that swim. Now, when you do get back and you want to build your base, you're going to need a little bit more titanium and some quartz, and at least one copper to get you started, because you need a bit of titanium, quartz for your hatch, for your habitation pot, multi-purpose room, and for your solar panel to get you started, because you can't power your base without at least some source of power. So if you don't already have the titanium and the copper and the quartz that you're going to need, you can pick up some metal scraps along the way and get you most of the way there.
Congratulations, survivor. You have exceeded your weekly exercise quotient by 500%. Data indicates that swimming was your favorite activity. Be sure to vary your routine for uniform muscle development.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of space yet, so I'm going to need to swap out some seeds for some of the quartz and titanium that I do have, and just try to get something started. Get the initial, and of course it's pitch black by the time I want to go set up my initial building structure, which is unfortunate because you want to make sure you're building in the right spot and have the right depth that you want, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I may have to wait until it gets a little bit brighter if I can't figure it out with my flashlight. So in your build menu, you can see the multi-purpose room is only 6 titanium. It's not that much titanium to get your initial room established. Make sure you don't asphyxiate yourself while you're trying to do some building and thinking about where you're going to build. Keep an eye on your oxygen levels.
It may be prudent to separate work and leisure spaces to maximize productivity. Treat this space as your home, but never forget that it is not. Warning. Local radiation readings suggest the Aurora's drive core has reached critical state. Quantum detonation will occur within 2 hours.
So at this point, you're not gonna ever have enough titanium, really. As you're expanding your base, titanium is used for almost everything, from garden plots to rooms and tunnels and so on and so forth. And for storage lockers themselves, you'll need titanium. But it's the most easy to come by resource of any. And it's only a couple titanium for a storage locker in your new base. But what if I think I still need to grab 1 copper from somewhere to build my first set of solar panels. So I need to try a couple limestone rocks here and hope for copper. And there it is. Okay, so now I believe I should have enough to make my first solar panel and then start using the base.
Power restored. Welcome the Prime Cap systems online.
And there you have it. Now you just need to lay down some 1 or 2 indoor grow beds, and you won't have to worry about food and water nearly at all at this point. From this point forward, once they are fully matured plants. So there you have it. That's the beginning of agriculture for you, and you can also use your titanium and build a bunch of storage lockers. The wall lockers, really handy. You can label them for whatever resources you want to store in them. And you've got plants and storage space, more than you will really need from this point on in the game. So there you have it. It took about an hour, a bit longer than it should have because I got lost on the way to the floating islands. But you have the basic idea now, how to get that done. Hopefully, this video helped you, gave you some ideas for how to proceed. And if you liked the video, give me a like or hit the subscribe button. Good luck in your Subnautica adventures. Okay, bye for now.